So hello Tebo, thank you for being with us. You have been with us already in a previous edition with your film Coming of Age. And now your film Days of Cannibalism will be part of our international competition for this edition. So thank you again. And I would like to start by this idea of Western that is implicit in the Days of Cannibalism, because there is the landscape, the police sheriff, the horse riding. I would like you to comment a little bit on this idea of Western and how it is important for this film and how did it came to you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm really honored to be part of the festival again. It was a fantastic experience being there in 2015. So maybe even if it's just virtually, I'm pleased to be with you. A Western, yes. So I mean, other than the kind of the formal the formal elements you just spoke about, you know, the horses, the landscape, the sheriff, the pioneers, the gold rush, all of these sort of kind of formal storytelling aspects of a Western. The film is a Western to me because it's in a frontier landscape, and by landscape I mean moment in time. You know, there's this sort of frontier space with the new arrivals, and the balance of power is out. There are new arrivals that have come with economic power that have changed the existing order of things. So the old laws don't apply anymore. And so the sense of lawlessness and kind of fight for who is stronger. You know, and I mean, it's not, there's no dueling or shooting of guns, but it's kind of a fight with money, with money, and it's this kind of moment in time when the old laws are collapsing and the new ones are not there yet. So it's a sense of lawlessness, sense of power struggle in a frontier landscape, which is really why it's also a Western to me.
But first, did you think on the film as documenting or portraying a social situation or phenomenon, or being a Western? What came first?
Well, my last film, before that I used to make I made gangster films with like gangster documentaries, and I like this idea of kind of taking a genre and putting it into a space, and especially because sometimes it takes me very long to make these films, that the characters, you know, their lives continue, so things have changed. Because I come and I shoot it over a long period, so there's no particular story that I follow. There's not one particular character. So sometimes it helps to have an overarching concept, you know. So I think, okay, I'm going to make a Western, and that's how I'm going to kind of build my story. I'm not going to follow somebody's story and say it's a story about somebody who lives a Western. It is a Western, and within that I find my film.
I had a curiosity about these riding horses, man. They wear balaclavas, those masks. Why did they use those masks?
Because it's very cold.
Okay. Simple as that.
Yeah, simple as that. It's very cold. And so also it's something that the shepherds have, and it's kind of they sort of a fashion, not a fashion thing, but like it's a sign of
cultural tradition, or
it's like it's a sign of their pride, you know, like their pride as shepherds, you know, where the masks that they do. Yeah.
So you grew up in Lesotho in South Africa, where the film was shot. When did you first notice this phenomenon of Chinese migration, and why did you want to shoot it? What did move you for this situation?
Well, growing up, I mean, there always were some kind of Chinese, you know, and they always felt quite mysterious, you know, because they're sort of apart, you know, and you'd find them in the strangest places, you know. I'd explore the country and I'd find like a Chinese shop, but like literally in the middle of nowhere, you know. And there's this kind of like mystery surrounding the Chinese, you know. Who are they? How do they manage to get here? Like this, because they don't speak English, you know, they speak a bit of Sesotho, and they kind of have their own family structures. That it's something that I really could not understand, you know. And I remember there was like a Chinese girl in school who once gave me a photograph of her, you know, but like kind of dressed as a manga character, and I was like completely fascinated because it was something, you know, so odd. So I mean, they'd always been there, but there hasn't been like a big wave of Chinese, you know. It's sort of like a steady kind of. And I used to do kung fu, taekwondo, and we had like a Chinese instructor, you know, who couldn't speak English or Sesotho, but like he was really good at kung fu. So they always were there, and there was a sort of mystery around them. But it was only when I lived in Hong Kong for a while, and I was in Guangzhou, and there I met the African traders doing business in China. And then I sort of thought, and that's where I kind of like understood, oh, you know, it's happening here as well. And that kind of gave me the understanding of how to make my film, you know?
And
so, yeah.
When was that? Here's like, I don't know.
2013 maybe? 2014 when I did my first photographs in Guangzhou.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In the film, there is a clear contrast between the rural shepherd life of locals, which is more communal in a community, and somehow more capitalist business life by the Chinese, which are more familiar, more individual. Is this so clear and evident in Lesotho's daily life, or you can see it?
Yeah, I mean, what is fascinating is that it's all happening in the same place, right? It's not like the Chinese live in a town, you know. They all live in the same place. The film takes place in the same place, but the Chinese community has basically created a world apart. You know, they've kind of created this little, like a fortress maybe, or like a cargo ship almost, because it has all the goods, and it's and they never leave it. They never leave their compound, you know, because they're worried about getting robbed, you know, for obvious reasons. And so within this, so they have zero connection to the physicality of the landscape. You know, they don't own the landscape in any way. They don't interact with the landscape. They know they're there, and they're kind of like in their heads. Many of them are in China. Their families are in China, you know. Sure. So I was quite interested by how they created this sort of sense of this little exile bubble, you know. And they're on the internet the whole time, and then the shepherds, on the other hand, you know, are really living there. I mean, they are connected in the most physical way, right?
I think Chinese and local people are barely together within the film, within the same shot. There is this barrier even in the film. So I would like to ask you, how did you approach to each community separately, and how many times did it take? Or if you were familiar with some of them already, I don't know.
Well, it was much easier for me to approach the Lesotho the Basotho community. And I did it through kind of more official method. Like I spoke to the department of the kind of the Minister of Police, you know, who gave me permission to shoot with the police, you know, and I did it kind of like very officially and properly. And the Chinese community, I found like a local kind of interpreter, you know, who kind of opened the door for me, and I just spent time with them, and like a trust or friendship grew, you know. And they were never really that interested in what I was filming. They were just so interested in me as a person, and that I was with them, you know.
And how many times did it take, more or less?
For them to trust me, or for them to,
for the shooting, but also for your relationship to develop properly with them, with the Chinese people.
Maybe 3 years.
Okay.
Or like 3 shootings. Like we'd always shoot in winter, and I think we had 3 shooting sessions, you know, over 3 years. Yeah.
I felt the film very balanced. Did you try to perform very balanced in relation to Chinese community and to local community? Did you try to perform a flat approach, an unjudged and equitative gaze? Did you thought of that?
Yeah, I mean, very much. I mean, I didn't want to take sides, you know, as such, you know. But I think that had to do as well with like overcoming my own prejudices, you know, because I began like instinctively, I'm more on the side of the Basotho, you know, like, oh my God, you know, there are these Chinese, they're coming here, they're making money, you know, the Basotho can't make money. Who are they? They send the money back home. They don't invest in the local community. This is happening all over Africa. This is some sort of neo-colonial wave, you know? Because there's this kind of like general narrative or about China taking over Africa in some way, you know? And what I found that it's first of all, there is no China. It's basically just individuals and families, right? And each family has their own, you know, their own story and their own mission, you know. And the more time I spent with them, the kind of like I really appreciated their courage, you know, you know, their courage in going out and looking for a better life for themselves somewhere, you know. And just like any refugees, migrants, right? Economic migrants, you know. And so I really kind of like grew to respect them, you know, and overcome my own prejudice. And I had this interesting moment where I was a little bit friends with one of the women who was working in one of the Chinese shops, you know, and then she quit her job. And she complained to me that, oh, you know, the Chinese are, you know, they exploit me, they don't pay me enough, you know. And immediately I was like, yeah, you know, it's terrible, you know, all they care about is money, you know, and they're not nice, you know. And she was like, so I was like, so what are you going to do now? And then she says, I don't know, but there's a Musutu who opened a shop on the other side of the Chinese, right? And I was like, oh, that's great, you know, you're good at your job. Why don't you go get a job with the Basutu? You know, maybe they'll treat you better. And she's like, you know, and she's like, you know, with the Basutu, if I go work there, they'll treat me nice, but I'll never get paid, you know. And I was like, oh, and at least the Chinese, you know, I will get paid, even if it's not a lot. And I was just like, you know, there's just no way out of this. This like capitalist sinkhole, you know. Yeah.
It's more complex than we can thought at first.
Exactly. And I mean, also, I mean, we can talk about the attack, the scene when I was, you know, because I don't know, did you realize that I am part of in that scene where the CCTV camera, the attack? I'm part of that. I'm the one who grabs the child.
Yeah, because I was wondering if it was really security footage, or if it was a reenactment.
Yeah, it's like it's almost too perfect. Sorry, I just have to turn off this Skype. Yeah, it was almost too perfect. No, I mean the whole thing with the little girl in pink. It's like you can't invent anything like that. And what happened there was that it was I was filming with the Chinese, and we're kind of like, it was getting a bit complicated because there was not much happening, and like they felt that their lives were so uninteresting. They didn't know what I was looking for, you know. And so I was kind of hoping to make another scene with them, and it was just before the World Cup final, 2018, right? 4:30, and the final was at 5:00. So we went there and we're hanging around the shop, and we thought, okay, maybe we can film a scene where we watch the football together, or, you know, something interesting happens, you know, because I was just sort of praying, you know, I need one more scene, you know, and maybe we can make it the football final. And then so we were there, and then in that moment we were all attacked, you know. So my prayers were answered, you know, in mysterious ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are short moments of intimate tension at shops, and I've found very moving moments, which is more explicit about this clash, when there is this singer man at the bar that is singing "Chinese are abusing us, we're suffering in their factories," and previously there is a scene of Chinese singing sentimental karaoke or something like that. These musical moments are also mirrors to general cultural differences. How did you approach to this? Why did you find interesting these musical moments? Let's say.
Well, the song is a famous. He was quite famous with that song. It was a bit of a hit at the time.
Okay.
And he used to perform the song at like weddings, I think, you know.
Okay.
So I heard about the song, and I organized the scene with him in the bar, you know, but like it's his song. And it's sort of like it comes across as kind of a blues moment, no? Sort of like, you know,
Yeah, it sounds like.
And with the karaoke scene, it was basically that's what they did every night. You know, they'd get drunk and sad. And I
But
feel like it's
But as you were saying in the beginning, they are always like out of that place. Are they are not even comfortable with their position in Lesotho, the Chinese community. They are sad or something like that.
I think they see it as very pragmatic, you know.
It's like a mission.
Yeah, it's like they are there to survive, you know. It's like, you know, I'm going to do my 5 years, you know, and I'm going to save money, and this is a good place to go because I don't spend money, and I'm going to work like incredibly hard, you know, and I'm going to send the money back home, you know. So they don't complain about being there at all, you know. Which is quite interesting, you know. They don't like if I was one of them, you know, I'd be like, you know, complaining the whole time.
Yeah.
But they sort of like acceptance, you know, which is really remarkable and a very kind of pragmatic approach to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if they stay there for long years or they come back to China, or they stay there.
It's basically like there's a boss, you know. It's a clan. It's like a family. And the main boss had that shop like for 20 years now, and now his son is running it, you know, and his son is there all the time. And the son's wife is in China, but like the son is there. And then they kind of get a nephew and an uncle, and like, you know, within the family, people come and go all the time.
Okay.
But it always stays within the family.
Okay. There is a strong presence of the animals, the cows and the horses. I was wondering why are the cows so important for Lesotho's locals and which role they play in this cultural life?
I have a whole essay on the cows.
Just a few points.
Okay, so how to begin? Well, the cow is the god with the wet nose because it is symbolically very important, right? Because for rituals like births or funerals, a cow is slaughtered and people gather around and eat the cow. It's also used within like when you negotiate a dowry, you know, when you kind of marry somebody, you pay with cows. You know, you say, okay, I'm going to, you know, offer you 20 cows, but you never pay the full amount. You pay maybe 10 cows and say, oh, okay. And then 5 years later, he comes and says, don't you owe me a cow? And you say, yes, but like the cow I gave you gave birth to 3 cows. So it's not really the cow itself. It's more the cow as a way to keep relationships between family going. Okay. Right? It's kind of, you know, so it's more complex than just like, you know, money. It's more about negotiating relationships between people. Okay. And like if you there's no bank, right? So if you invest your money, you buy it in cattle. You buy cows, and that's a good investment for your retirement. And if you're a rich man, you buy many cows. You're more respected if you have cows because it's a wealth that the whole community can profit. Right? It's not like, you know, you have like, I don't know, 5 cars, and, you know, no one cares about that. But if you have many cows, you're respected because you know, everyone takes part in this wealth. So it's really important on so many levels. And it's a way of defining one's personhood. You know, you're more of a person through your animals. Like it creates you as a person. So I was really interested in that idea of cattle theft. You know, like what happens when people steal another person's cows. You know, it's more than just stealing their money. It's like you cannibalizing their personhood. You know, and that was kind of and that was where this whole idea of cannibalism came from, and why I explore. That's why I started working with the police and the court scene, and just to understand the importance of cows. Yes, and the last scene also. Yes, exactly. So yeah, exactly. So the whole kind of value of the cow as the local economic coin. You know, the cow is the glue that keeps the community together. Because it's more than just a cow. And then and then the Chinese arrive and they start investing in cows as well. Okay. But them investing in cow, when they start investing in cows, they don't care about anything other than the fact that it's just a cow. It's just, you know, a kilogram per dollar, you know? And that takes, and that, so it destroys the whole mythology and symbolism of the animal, you know? So the god with the wet nose is sacrificed at the end because he's dead, you know? So the capitalism that the Chinese bring from outside destroys the local economic coin or economic system. And this is the kind of old world dying and new world moving in, and I've written pages on this.
Okay, so I would like to go back to the first moment, because you say in an interview to Variety, I guess, that these people, as you were saying right now, are just like individual going to another country from China to make their lives, basically, to survive. They are not part of a major plan from China. But I wonder at the same time if there is, and this cow story also is a point for this, because isn't there a real chance of a cultural or economical settlement or assimilation? Or do you think that there is like a mutual cultural influence between Lesothos and
no Chinese?
And Chinese.
I think this is quite interesting, and it's interesting because, how to put it? The Chinese in Lesotho are there for very practical reasons, you know. So I've heard of like some Basotho getting married to Chinese men, you know, but usually this happens more with the Africans going to China, that they marry Chinese women, you know. There's more sort of assimilation there. But even there, in that hotel where I filmed, it's only exclusively for Africans, and the Chinese don't come and hang around there. It's just really the Africans have created their own cosmos, you know, in this hotel. And I'm really curious to understand what is happening there. And partly, and I mean, maybe this is very theoretical, but I spoke to like a Chinese a kind of a filmmaker about this once, and he said what he thinks is that Africa and China did not know Africa without looking at it through the West, and Africa did not know China without looking through the West. So there's always the colonial gaze, right? Yeah. So now this is the first time these two cultures are meeting in a way.
Yeah.
You know, face to face.
Yeah.
And because it happens in an economic setting, it's all about business. There's no interest in giving, like, you know, in some sort of colonialization or in teaching other persons about the other culture, about your own religion. You know, the way the Europeans went to Africa, they went to make money, but they also came to bring their own religion, you know. And for the Chinese, it's not about that. It's just about business. So it's this meeting between these two cultures for the first time, and it's only about business, right? Which is kind of like sad, you know, because there's very little curiosity about the other culture. But in a way, it's also honest, you know, because you're not trying to manipulate or teach the other one anything. You just sort of like looking at each other and say, okay, you know, it's very transactional.
Okay. Sure. I recall somehow during the film, I recall Ford's How Green Was My Valley, and the actual problem of farmer miners that become unemployed. And we can see it as well in Portugal and in Spain. And I was wondering if you consider this film as a kind of a reverse shot of the happy face of globalization and global capitalism, if you thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go out to make a film that is critical of globalization as such. You know, I went to make a film about a situation or about about an encounter. But all these things, you know, that these things come up. You know, I mean, in a way, globalization makes it possible that there's this meeting, which is interesting. You know.
Yeah, sure.
But like, you don't get, you know, by the Chinese, by creating this meeting, other things get broken, you know.
Okay.
and that's quite difficult. And there are always people who lose, you know.
Okay, so last question is if you can see as a possible future to these communities get along for a dialogue or something like that, or if you think they will keep separated.
It was funny when I showed the film at the Berlin Film Festival. There were some Chinese members in the audience, and I was a bit nervous, like if he felt that it was balanced, you know. And he came up to me and told me, yeah, he felt it was balanced. And then he asked me the same question, like, what's going to happen in the future? And what's so interesting is that for the Chinese in China, this is really interesting as well, because they don't know what the Chinese are doing in Africa.
What's happening?
Yeah, you know, so they're like, you know, what's going, you know. So is it going to have a happy ending? I don't know. I think it'll take a very strange. I think there'll be very. I mean, I made as part of the film, I did some research in like a monastery, a Buddhist monastery that they had created in Lesotho, where they were taking young children, orphans, and teaching them kung fu and and Buddhism, you know. Okay. And in a way that was it's a very beautiful thing, because like, you know, the kind of the songs and the kind of the drama around it, but also very strange and like a bit and very disturbing, you know. So I think the encounter is going to take like some detours, and it'll go to interesting places, and I hope it'll have a good ending.
So thank you.
I mean, you know, I think the DJ, you know, you know, he's optimistic, right? He thinks yeah. He's like,
tries to create a dialogue,
exactly, you know, and and maybe there'll be more like him, you know, and he gives me hope, you know, like when he says that he's going to see the Chinese being shepherds now, you know, and then they can teach him how to make money, and then he can go to Sweden, you know, and play ABBA, you know, and so I mean, there's definitely hope as well, you know.
Yeah, let's hope so. Thank you, TEBOHO, for being with us. So I will just want to remember that the film will be playing at Proposed Dog, will be screened at Proposed Dog, Days of Cannibalism by TEBOHO Edkins. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Yeah.